In this presentation, we're going to walk through the action items to move your organization from Google Workspace to Microsoft 365 using Microsoft's built-in Migration Manager. We will cover how it works, what you need to set it up, how to run it step by step, and the common challenges you should plan for. Think of the Migration Manager as a bridge between two worlds. On one side, you have Google Workspace. On the other, Microsoft 365. The Migration Manager sits in the middle and does three critical things automatically. First, it translates Google's proprietary file formats into their Microsoft equivalents. Second, it maps user identities from the Google environment to their counterparts in Microsoft system. And third, it retains important metadata, things like when a document was created, when it was last modified, and who it was shared with. Nothing about your data's history gets lost in transit. Before the migration can begin, you need 5 specific things in place. First, administrator credentials, a super admin account on the Google side, and a global admin account on the Microsoft side. Second, you'll need to install the Microsoft 365 migration app from the Google Workspace Marketplace to grant the necessary API permissions. Third, for Gmail migration specifically, you'll need a JSON private key generated from a Google Cloud Platform service account. This is what authorizes the endpoint connection. Fourth, you'll need an identity mapping spreadsheet, a structured file that matches each Google email address to its corresponding Microsoft 365 address. And fifth, you'll need to define your endpoint details, the admin control email, and the maximum number of concurrent data transfers you want to allow. Have all 5 ready before you begin. One of the most important things Migration Manager does automatically is convert file formats. Google Docs become Word documents. Google Sheets become Excel files. Google Slides become PowerPoint presentations. But it's not just files. The system also maps your organizational structure. Google domains, groups, and individual user profiles are all translated into their Microsoft Entra ID counterparts, formerly known as Azure Active Directory. This means your permissions, your group memberships, and your identities travel with your data. Files and emails don't follow the same path. They are handled through 2 completely separate administrative systems. For file migration, your Google Drive content, the Control Center, is the SharePoint Admin Center's Migration tab. Your source data is drives and folders, and the destination is either OneDrive or SharePoint. For email migration, your Gmail content, the Control Center, is the Exchange Admin Center, also under the Migration tab. Your source is mailboxes, and the destination is Outlook mailboxes. Knowing which admin portal to use for which type of data will save you significant confusion during setup. Google Drive migration follows a clear, 6-step workflow. Step 1. Connect. Authorize the Microsoft 365 migration app in the Google Workspace Marketplace. One important note. That authentication session will expire after just 10 minutes of inactivity, so don't walk away. Step 2. Scan. The system assesses your drives to identify potential blockers like oversized files or unsupported characters. Step 3. Copy, move any drives with a ready-to-migrate status onto the active migration list. Step 4. Review. Verify that every source folder path correctly maps to the right destination URL in OneDrive or SharePoint. Step 5. Map. Upload your identity spreadsheet to align Google users with their Microsoft 365 accounts. And Step 6. Migrate. Execute the transfer and monitor everything through the central dashboard. Gmail migration works differently from file migration, and the batch setup process has 2 specific configuration rules you need to know. The first is standard exclusions. By default, the system is configured to leave trash and spam folders out of the migration batch entirely, which is almost always what you want. The second is routing subdomains. While the migration is underway, user accounts are in transition between systems, and email must keep flowing without interruption. To ensure that happens, administrators need to establish a secondary mail routing path, a subdomain, so messages are never dropped during the cutover period. One of the most powerful features of the Migration Manager is how it handles the challenge of keeping data current right up until the moment of cutover. The strategy works in 2 phases. In the first phase, the initial bulk move, the vast majority of your organization's files are copied to Microsoft 365 in the background, while employees continue working normally in Google Workspace. Nobody is disrupted. Then, just before the final cutover, the system runs what's called a delta sync. This lightweight second pass only transfers files that are new or that were modified since the initial bulk move. The result, a final transition that can be measured in hours rather than days, with virtually no operational downtime. This is one of the most important structural differences to understand when migrating Gmail to Outlook, and it directly affects your storage. Gmail uses a label system. That means a single email can exist once in the mailbox, but carry multiple category labels simultaneously. Outlook, on the other hand, uses a folder system, where each email physically lives in one place. So here's the problem. If an email in Gmail has 3 labels applied to it, the migration process will duplicate that email into 3 separate folders in Outlook. Multiply that across thousands of emails, and you can see how mailbox sizes can increase significantly after migration. Plan your storage accordingly. As you migrate your file structure, there are 2 hard, technical limits to be aware of. The first is path length. Microsoft 365 caps the destination file path at 400 characters. Google Drive allows deep folder nesting with no such restriction, so files buried in many layers of subfolders may fail to transfer or get truncated. Review your folder structures before you migrate. The second limit is file size. The Migration Manager technically supports files up to 250 gigabytes. However, in practice, due to organizational policies or specific implementation constraints, files larger than 15 gigabytes frequently cause failures and will need to be uploaded manually. Flag those large files early and plan for them separately. Most content types convert cleanly. Standard documents and presentation slides generally make the trip without issue. But highly complex Google Sheets workbooks deserve special attention. The challenge is formatting alterations. Intricate formulas, custom functions, or heavily embedded external links may simply not have an exact equivalent in Excel. When that happens, the formula or link breaks, and you lose functionality. To get ahead of this, Microsoft provides a built-in tool called the Sheet Scan. Before you execute the migration, run a sheet scan to identify any incompatible formulas. This gives your team the opportunity to manually review and adjust critical financial or operational spreadsheets before they move, not after. Finally, let's talk about the speed bumps you're likely to encounter and frame them correctly. These are expected system behaviors, not signs that something has gone fundamentally wrong. The first is throttling. Microsoft 365 will intentionally slow down large background data transfers during peak hours to protect overall service health. Schedule your heaviest migration work during off-peak times. The second is error 401 or 403, access denied. This almost always means that an administrative access token has expired and simply needs to be refreshed. The third is an error called MAUTHNOCODE, which is an authorization failure. The fix is straightforward. Administrators need to log back in and re-verify their credentials to re-establish the connection. And the fourth is MEXPORTFILERESTRICTED, which means the Google environment itself is blocking the export of specific files due to data loss prevention policies. Those files will need to be handled manually. Know these codes, and you'll spend less time troubleshooting and more time migrating.